want to use social media to grow your coaching business, but you're just not a massive fan of social media right now, then stay tuned. I'm talking to Litt, who is going to help us learn how we can use social media to help us grow our coaching businesses and not hate it at the same time. Let's dive in. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura. I help health, life and spiritual coaches get more clients so they can generate more income and live their most aligned life. And today on the show, I'm really excited to be interviewing Litt, who is a social media manager who specialises in helping people who hate social media but know they need to use it to grow their businesses. And I thought she'd be a great person to chat to on the show because, you know, I've spent a lot of time over the last few months talking about how we don't need social media, and I still stand by that. I don't necessarily think it's an essential thing that we need in our businesses. But I am also aware that there is a lot of possibility with social media. There's a lot of opportunity there. And I think if it feels aligned with you, it's still a great place to be. So I was really excited to chat to Lauren and get a lot of her tips about making the most out of social media, about how to approach it if perhaps you feel a bit scared of it, if it just feels a bit overwhelming, if it's somewhere that you just don't enjoy being right now. She's got really fantastic tips. Let's get stuck in. Welcome, Lauren, to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm so excited to have you on today to be talking all about social media, which I think is a really interesting topic. And as I was just saying before we hit record, I know that a lot of people listening to the show have, let's say, mixed feelings about social media. So I think we can really dig into that. But before we start that, would you like to tell all the listeners a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Laura, thank you so much for having me on. I cannot say when I first heard your podcast and how you speak to what you teach, I was like, oh, this is gold. I just knew we were talking the same language because the joy of having a business and having that message that was set inside of you, being able to share that with people, like it's so good. And I love how easy you make it for people to really step into their power. So I'm thrilled to be here. Who am I? My name is Lauren, y'all. I love helping people who don't like social media, but know they need it for their business. So if that's you, yes, you are in the right place. I've been the owner of a social media agency for almost 10 years now. And I have dogs and I'm an actor. That's me in a nutshell.
Amazing. Oh, that's amazing. So, I mean, you are the exact right person to have on the show to talk about social media because often the conversations that I've been having with people lately is how do we market our business without social media? And although I totally get that, and you know, I've written and talked about on the show extensively about alternatives to social media, I still think that for a lot of people, there's a whole, I suppose there's a few different things to unpick here because it is a massive topic, which
Yeah.
is so juicy. But I suppose maybe the first question to ask you is social media still, and I probably know what you're going to say, but I'd love to kind of hear a bit more of the reasoning behind it. But is social media still worth putting the time and energy into? Because I think what a lot of people are saying is like, you know, people worry about the algorithm, you know, they're not getting seen as much. The effort that they put in doesn't always seem to equal the output that they get. But I'd love to hear your take on this, being someone who is in the, you know, neck deep in the social media world, shall we say?
Yes. And all of those things, I understand those are perfectly valid feelings that people have, but what we need to understand about social media is that it's a long game
Yeah.
and that it is still the best space to build community for you and your business. Your email list is fantastic. That's where we're going to get the sales, but the place people are going to get to know you and love you is through your social media platforms. And when people say things like that, like, oh, the algorithm hates me, nobody's seeing my stuff, I'm putting so much effort into this, there's a couple things normally happening. One is a misunderstanding of how a platform works. You're operating on old information or old thoughts about how often you need to post or what kind of content needs to go out. The other thing that's happening is you are too focused on yourself and not focused on those you need to help. Because once we turn that focus outwards, it becomes really easy to share the kind of content you need to share in the consistency you need to do. So those are the two things that I find. And there's also a third, which is if you've actually had a scary experience online. And so you really have a fear. I've had a scary experience online. So that's a separate issue too. But those are like the three buckets that we can like look into and and make it so that you never have to like social media, but to understand it and respect it, because y'all, this is a free tool. Free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it has such potential and power, really, doesn't it? I think for your business. People who might feel a bit, because I think it can also be a bit overwhelming at the start, and there's so many different platforms that you can look at. I mean, have you got any advice to people who might be just starting their businesses and who are looking at social media and just thinking, like, where the fuck do I start with all of these platforms? Where do I even begin? Like, do I need to be on all of them? Do I need to just choose one? Like, what would your
Yeah,
advice
because
be?
it is so overwhelming when you're stepping in.
Mm.
I am a big proponent of do less more often. So I like to say, let's pick your hero platform. Let's pick one platform to start with and go with the path of least resistance. If you like Instagram, let's go on Instagram. If you're a Facebook oldie, and that's where your jam is, let's go with Facebook. It's all good, because the thing is, everybody is everywhere. Yes, if we really want to get laser specific, if you and I were working together in coaching, we would pick the quote unquote best platform for you based on who your audience is and what kind of skill sets you have. But just get started. That's the real key. So pick one platform and start posting once a week. That's it.
A week.
One
That's a
platform
good bit of
once a
advice.
week.
Yeah. Yeah. And it cuts that overwhelm out, doesn't it? When people are really
Yeah.
worried about what to post or how often to post, but just
Mhm.
getting started there, I think is a great piece of advice. Absolutely. And then I think I feel like a lot of people who listen to the show are probably on Instagram. I think Instagram's probably the most popular out of most of the people that I work with in terms of places where they are. And
Yeah.
obviously we've got all of this short form video content now coming out. Kind of, do you still, I think where people might have felt the pressure is that they have to be creating that. I mean, what's your take on the kind of short form video
Oh, I
content
love it.
trend?
I love it so much. So here's the deal. We're going to talk specifically about Instagram,
Mhm.
in that when we're looking at Instagram, it is a multi-tiered platform. There's like 3 social media algorithms stuffed into this one thing, y'all. So
Mhm.
it's a behemoth. And when we're talking about these short form videos, or you hear people talk about reels, really what that is the first paint of coat that's going out. What we find especially when I'm working with clients, reels are getting first eyes, but they're not the converting content. What converts are like photo posts, like the single photo that you share of yourself, those convert huge. If you're doing a carousel around what you're sharing, that can convert. But those reels are the very top of the funnel. And so when people are uncomfortable getting on video, like, I have good news for you. You don't have to do video in order to be successful on social media. You do have to be willing to get in and engage with the other people that are on social media.
Oh, well, there's a juicy thing to get into. In terms of engagement, then, where do you advise people start? Because I think that's where people, I mean, there's lots of things that people find scary about social media, but I think that is one of the things where they kind of worry that they're going to be on their phones 24/7, where they will struggle with knowing what that engagement needs to look like and what to say. Would you have any advice around where people could start with engagement?
Yeah, and I think actually this helps relieve the pressure of content as well, because people get so focused on what we're putting on the platform, we forget that 50% of your success on any platform is going to be your engagement. And that engagement looks like responding to anyone. Let's again talk specifically about Instagram, since we
Mhm.
brought that up. Anyone who has liked your post, reach out to them, say hi. Thanks for, liking my post. It feels like I'm posting into a void. I'm really glad this connected with you. Anyone who has followed you, reach out to them and connect with them. Anyone who is talking about the things you are coaching around, leave a comment, get engaged. What we're doing is we're training the algorithm to start showing your content to people who you're interested in and start showing their content to you. It's going to connect you with the right people if you're actually, I like to say, it's like being a guest at the party, right? If you show up at the party and you've brought your bottle of wine and you mingle and you talk, like, at the end of the night, you might have a new friend. one new friend, right? But if you sit in the corner and you just like put on your best like lipstick and shoes and you're kind of bitchy in the corner, nobody's going to want to hang out with you. So be a good guest at the party, mingle, talk to people. Don't make it all about you all the time.
Yeah, that is such a good piece of advice. And again, I think it's really easy for people just to forget that. I'm taking lots of tips from this. And I mean, I'm kind of on a bit of an Instagram hiatus. So I've got the 9 grid set up at the moment, which just basically
Yeah.
lets me off the hook for doing anything on it. But that I am thinking about taken out of retirement and coming back onto Instagram. So this is all very good advice for me. But yeah, I think that's really, really useful. I think people just find the whole idea of engagement a bit scary. And I think people worry about becoming across as being a bit icky as
Mm.
well in like that, those kind of engagements. But I think the examples that you just gave there about just saying hi, like thanks for, you're not pitching anything to anyone, are you? You're literally just saying hi.
Yeah. And I actually recently did a live about this icky feeling, because
Yeah.
I'm so familiar with this, y'all. Like, I'm an artist. I can feel inauthentic action like a mile off, So
Yeah.
like, I'm so there with you. We don't want to be icky. And the thing is, though, if it is a business account, you're there for a reason. So we also don't want that like hanging over our heads, because that makes us feel icky too. So my suggestion is, let's connect with the people we like and be authentic. Normally, I read through someone's profile, I check out what they have, and if I feel connected, if I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I remember this woman." I don't have children, but this woman had this beautiful way of coaching parents, and I just was like, "Oh, this is so fabulous," because, I could see how this could affect my nephew or my niece or whatever. And so we connected.
Yeah.
I almost immediately was like, "I really love your stuff. I have this free quiz, that helps
Yeah.
you connect with people online. Would you like the link?" And she was like, "Absolutely." And I sent it over to her, and then we moved on with life.
Yeah.
So it's like, I love that you're helping people this way. Here's how I help people. And then it will go the way it should. You'll know immediately, right? But
Yeah.
the goal isn't to get my quiz into her hands. The goal is to connect.
Yeah.
And then if that connection is right, the quiz comes next. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. Definitely. Yeah. And that's really good. I think that's a really good way to think of it all, because people just do get massively overwhelmed at the whole idea of reaching out to people and not feeling
Oh,
like they're
yeah.
just full of ick.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah.
It's so, and I know exactly that feeling, and I get it, especially when I'm working with someone and we're trying
Yeah.
to create what we call that DM strategy, that
Yes. Of
authenticness.
course. Yeah.
Because you'll feel it. People will be like, "No, no, no." And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden
Yeah.
they click into the right words or the right
Yes.
way that they're going to connect. And they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this feels so good."
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes a massive difference. I think we've all had DMs. I mean, my Instagram's full of DMs that are just like, what? And it just feels
yes.
really, but yeah, so it's really good to know that there's ways of doing that that aren't like icky and weird,
Mhm.
basically.
And the thing that I think people get confused about here is that people think it's a numbers game. Like, I'm going to reach out to 1,000 people today and 3 of them are going to be clients. It's like, what if you just cultivated 10 people over the next month and one of them became a client?
Yeah.
I would love a brand new client each month, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Like, that's the speed of my business.
Yeah.
So let's get real about our numbers. And that's also when you're talking about people like, "Oh, the algorithm hates me. Nobody sees my content." Like, let's get real. Normally, when people are saying that, I look into their content and I'm like, "Your content is behaving properly. We're getting a 3% return.
Yeah.
That's correct."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's interesting. I mean, I recently ran a little mini kind of training around visibility. And one of the
Yeah.
things I was saying in that was, you know, we don't have to be reaching hundreds of thousands of people to have a successful business. And sometimes the pressure, we feel that we should be getting different results than we are getting, but that's actually in line with what is normal and,
Yeah.
and healthy in the world kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that actually those, like, exactly as I say, you can connect with 10 people and have the option to convert one of those into a client. And that's actually fine. And that's enough. For most of the people who listen to the show, they're not here to grow multi 6-figure businesses. We're much more about the cozy business. on the
Yeah.
Wholehearted Business show, like the small and kind of cozy business. So you don't need those giant numbers, which I think is a bit of a positive for most people who feel a bit freaked out by social media. Something else I'd love to chat a little bit about is around, and I mean, you kind of already spoke a little bit to this, I think, when you said about just starting by posting once a week. But what advice would you have to people who find it difficult to be consistent with social media? I know there's lots of different chats around, people might talk about having like content pillars so that you've got ideas
Mhm.
for things, or, batching content and things. But would love to know what your kind of opinion is or your ideas are around
Yeah.
consistency.
Like, here's the thing is that consistency rules on any platform you're on. And when I'm saying consistency, it's not just like, oh, posting Tuesday at 10 a.m. It's training the algorithm that you're going to be feeding it content once a week or twice a week or whatever it is,
Mhm.
because the algorithm is constantly trying to keep people online, right? That's its entire goal. I mean, we want it to keep people there too, so they can see our stuff. And so if they can't count on you in a consistent way, they're not going to be grabbing your content to put it into the feed. This is why consistency is so important on social media. Also, in a marketing rules sense, there's something called the rule of seven, which
Oh, mhm.
states that people need to see something at least 7 times. And now, with how much we're inundated, is more like 10 to 12 times before you can recognize it. That's wild, right?
It is, yeah.
So like I could see your post for your podcast 5 times, but if I haven't seen it 7 times, I'm not going to like click and go, oh, maybe I should listen to this podcast. Like that's the way our brains work. So if you put that in your head and you need to think, yes, batching content is great if you have time. Yes, having your pillars, that's something I work with people to identify those key messages that we're going to work through. But the most important thing is just to fill that slot in whatever way fills your business. And if it's once a week, great. If it's once a month, great. Like start where you are now. And the other key secret, y'all, is nobody cares. If you are really good at writing emails, grab your email and that's your social media post. Nobody's going to be like, I'm on her email list and I just read this last week.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Nobody gives a flying poop about what, is going on. What they care about
Yeah.
is, did that message resonate with me? How did I get affected today? Did I take away a tip about making my morning better? Like these are things that matter to people, not that you have a great piece of content and you've used it 5 times.
Yeah.
Consistency.
Yes. Content repurposing. Yeah. I'm all about I think that's a
Yes,
great
I
term
know.
to use. Yeah.
I loved when you walked through, like, I'm doing the podcast and then here's the YouTube. Like you like,
Yes.
it's so smart. And yeah, it can be this simple, you know?
Yeah. And it's good to know because I think, again, what people do is they overthink and overcomplicate it a little bit.
Yeah.
And what's good to know is that it can still be effective being that simple in terms of
Mhm.
just reusing what you've got, finding a consistency schedule that works for you in terms of how much time you've got, whether that's once a week or more. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's really helpful. And then around the visibility side of it, and you did mention when you were talking about those 3 things that like a scary experience on social media was something,
Yes.
and I know that's often a fear that people have that kind of stops them being visible. Is there anything that you can share that perhaps you've come across that might help people who have, and I suppose not just like a specific fear of something scary happening on social media, but any general issues around visibility? Because there's, as I kind of explored a few weeks ago in this free training that I did, there's so many different elements that keep people worried about being visible, and social media
Yeah.
tends to be like the most triggering place, I think,
Hmm.
around that. But yeah,
Yeah.
got any tips?
So I'm going to share a story about a client of mine,
Mhm.
but I want to start with, there are people who have legitimate fears about things going on, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's your whatever you are, and that there are trolls and hateful people out there who are going to have that. And
Yeah.
so the best thing we can do is have a plan in place before it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the story I want to share is a client of mine who was a big proponent of the LGBTQ plus
Yeah.
space. And we was very visible, and she did a lot of things out. So she had a lot of people who were followed her, and her Twitter feed specifically was just this place where a lot of people came together and shared things. And it was a really
Yeah.
cool, fun space to be. However, there were also those evil troll people. And this one particular day, someone came on and said a really hateful thing to one of her Twitter members.
Yeah.
And we were like, what do we do? And so we came up with the plan of we're going to respond to this person. We're not just going to
Yeah.
delete it, because if we delete it, now we're pretending like it doesn't exist. And that's almost gaslighting ourselves, right? Like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
this stuff does exist in the world.
Yeah.
So we responded with something that said something like, this is my Twitter feed, and here we accept X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
This is hate speech, and it
Yeah.
can't continue. If you do it again, you will be removed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what happened was magical. The person who the hate had been directed at, everybody came to their aid. This person then a couple days later reached out to the person of the feed, and she
Hmm.
said, thank you so much. I have been being bullied by this person, and it's kept me up, and
Oh
I've just
gosh. Yeah.
felt on the edge. And
Yeah.
now I don't feel alone.
Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
at the light that we were able to shed on that dark moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
absolutely. Yeah. Because
it's
it's a bit like
beautiful.
some people have very legitimate, and this is one of the things that I mentioned in the training is that, people who have a marginalized identity or
Yeah.
like various different reasons have really legitimate fears about being in public online spaces that aren't managed,
Mhm.
where they have to manage that space. And I think that tip about having a plan in terms of what you would do, in terms of how you might, the comments that you might get, etc. I think is a really smart plan for people feeling a bit
Yeah.
safer in terms of sharing the whole selves, which is, another part of the work that I try and do with people is, not being afraid to bring the whole selves into their business. But with that does come a vulnerability, especially. So I think having that plan of knowing how you will respond or manage that is really powerful and really helpful, because it can be, I mean, it's also to balance that out. I mean, I've been online for 12, 13 years, and I think I can count on one hand the negative experiences I've had on social media, but also recognizing that I am white, cis,
Yeah.
don't have any
Yeah.
particularly controversial opinions, shall we say. Do you know what I mean? So, but again, like, we're not here to be vanilla, are we, on social media? I think we're
No.
here to, to be able to share those parts of ourselves.
And the thing is, for every small person out there who's going to deliver hate, there are 10 more who will bring love. That's just the truth.
Yeah,
But if we leave this platform to the trolls, we're giving them way too much power. And
yeah,
so that's actually why I do what I do, because every person who has a voice that has this little creative idea or this moment of I see the world in a different way and I want to make it better,
yeah.
we need you so desperately right now, right? Like the
Oh
world
yeah.
desperately needs you.
Yes.
And so you just can't leave it on the table. Like this platform, you can connect with so many people and make the world so much better simply
Yeah,
by being on it.
yeah. Oh, and that's a lovely way to think of it as well, isn't it? It's a really beautiful way to think of it. And you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier as well that social media is still the best place to cultivate a community, which I think
Hmm.
is really, really interesting and really powerful. Like, what tips would you have around that, like how to, because I think there is, like, you do come across some, obviously Facebook groups are kind of a fairly, am I right in saying, a fairly unique-ish kind of feature of Facebook?
Yeah. Yeah.
Elsewhere, I mean, how do you kind of create that community feel where people feel safe? I mean, obviously, that's a wonderful example that you've given from your client on Twitter, how
Hmm.
they made a member of their community feel safe and managed that really well. But have you got any other tips for kind of building that community feel? Because I kind of sense that maybe it's about sharing like some shared values or a shared kind of goal, but
Yeah.
I'll let you kind of jump in on that one.
You got it. Yeah. So the thing about community, right, is it's not one person, it's the bringing together of people and ideas around things that we love. So I'm going to share Therapy Jeff. If you don't know him online, he's a great Instagram feed to follow.
Mhm.
And the reason I follow him is because someone I know was like, oh my gosh, shared something he shared and was like, if you're
Yeah.
not following Therapy Jeff, you've got to follow Therapy Jeff. Right. So now I'm a part of the Therapy Jeff community, quote unquote, right? He's on Instagram. It's not like there's a special place we gather and like a special handshake we do, but there's he'll do something and then we're in the comments, and when I'm reading the comments, like I feel like I belong with these people. And so just by being you and doing the thing that brings joy to you, or the thing that's going to change the world, which is your joy, you will bring together like-minded people, and there'll be hashtags that happen, and there'll be sharing of content that brings people together. That is what I mean by community. Yeah, there's not really like an open chat space, there's Instagram's trying out some things right now,
I
trying to.
was going to come on to that, but I'll circle back round to added features and things.
Yeah, we'll see how it happens. Like I don't
Yeah.
see, I haven't, I've joined a couple of groups and there's like a reluctant participation. It's like people more really like to just kind of hang and watch things on Instagram, but don't take that passive, taking in of your content as negligence, because people are not, they're actually there. They're reading your post, they're commenting on, they're like in their head, they're sharing things. They just might not be commenting or jumping into the group chat with you. So yeah, do what you do. Like when you do what you do and you do it well, you will bring people together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant. But yeah, nicely touched on some of the new things, because I think this is an interesting, I mean, obviously Threads came out kind of like the start of the summer, I think it was,
Yeah.
in the UK, and you were like June-ish, I think.
Yeah, you all had it before we did.
Did we have it before you did?
You did.
We're lucky in the UK. But I can remember it just being at like a sudden like bit of a FOMO, being like and I joined it and then I posted about 3 times and then I've never been back on it again.
Yeah.
So I mean, and obviously there's going to be more, this seems to be what social media does, is it kind of constantly feels like it seems to need to bring new things out. I mean, what's your take on how to not get dragged into FOMO when something new comes out, or how to be like the discernment, I think, to know when to go somewhere
new.
something new. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I think the thing about social media is that the only rule is that it's always changing. Always, right? And the reason it's always changing is because we're always becoming more and more sophisticated as viewers, right? As takers in of this stuff. So they have to keep being like, well, what's going to keep their interest now? Because we're little monkey brains, right? We're all over the place. So I think that the idea of social media that people have, people think it's changing much faster than it's actually changing. So I too jumped on Threads. I was actually thrilled to have Threads because I was a big Twitter person until Twitter became.
I was a big Twitter person as well, so I was quite excited to jump on it. But then, I kind of
same. I was like
timing, but yeah,
I was like, yay! And then I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll go back. Go where your interests flow. That's the easiest thing you're going to find, because I guarantee you, if you are finding yourself scrolling on a platform, your clients are there as well, because we help each other, those of us like who are connected. So when to try new things, I think you always should at least test the waters. If you haven't opened a TikTok, go ahead and open it, see what it's like. What's up?
I have, and I'm addicted now.
Great.
Thank you. My friend I kind of had it on my phone and I was like, this is for much younger people than me. And then I kind of realized it wasn't necessarily, it was, and then I got into it and now I've got a slight addiction, but
yeah, it's pretty great. But the thing is
it's like a lot of fun. It's amazing. And my feed is basically bearded men climbing up mountains, which is wonderful. Autumn, fall themed things. And that's pretty much it, which I'm really happy with.
Yeah.
And occasional like gym workouts. Like women working out with, so I'm happy there.
The occasional gym workout. Throw, remember you like this too. Yeah. So the thing, like, you should always try it. Go in with an inquisitive mind, see what it's like, and you'll know, like, yeah, I think this is something I can do. When I'm working with someone who really doesn't want to be on camera, I'm like, we're not going to put you on TikTok. Okay. That's a lot of camera time that you need to have. We're going to start maybe with a Facebook or a LinkedIn or maybe a Pinterest, like go with your strengths and then see where that leads. When we talked about starting with one platform, you'll know when it's time to add a second or a third. It's when you're getting results on the first one, right? Yeah. Once you're getting results, then you can be like, oh, maybe I'll start trying this on LinkedIn as well. But like, don't try and spread yourself super thin because you're just going to get tired.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing because it is easy to, feel like you need to just be everywhere and perhaps feeling like you're not getting results somewhere and then moving on too quickly. I've often seen this with
Mhm.
people that I've worked with where they have, like tried something for like 4 weeks and not had results and actually that's
Yes.
really long enough to give it time. So I think that's a really key thing to remember is to give things a bit more time and
Yeah.
that consistency and things
Because
before
this is a long
activating.
game.
Yeah. I went to a big conference here in the UK and there was you probably won't know him in the States, but there's a guy over here called Joe Wicks who is like a massive fitness person. And he told a story about how I think he posted like 1,000 times or something on Twitter before he made a single sale or something. But it was really around just sharing
Wow.
the fact that actually it's, people expect like results a lot quicker than is actually realistic. Because I think we hear about the unicorns who get much quicker results, but that doesn't tend to be
Mhm.
what most people experience. So I thought that was quite interesting.
And those unicorns typically have a history of failure behind them, right? Before
Yeah.
they've figured it out and then applied it and been like, oh, there it is. I like to tell people you're not going to be in business for 30 days. So don't treat your social media like that.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
want businesses that are going to support us for years. So you want a social media platform that you can be with for years.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's what I'm often saying is, we want sustainable businesses that are going to be here for a long time. So I
Mhm.
think taking that long game view is really quite important as well, isn't it? So
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, I think that's been so helpful and really
Oh, good.
it's really got me think because I have been debating whether or not to. I mean, I do post on Instagram stories, but on the grid, I kind of got a bit. I would say burnt out. Is that a thing to get a bit burnt out with social media?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So I
Absolutely.
feel like I'm ready to come back perhaps soon. We
Oh,
shall
I'm so
see.
excited to have
We
you
shall
back.
see. But I always ask at the end of a podcast episode, I always ask guests, what is your version of success? Because I think if there's one thing that, is really individual and that I love people thinking about is what their individual version of success is rather than just falling in line with, I need to have a 6-figure business that
Oh, yeah.
and work from the beach in Bali kind of thing, which is lovely. But, I like to hear other people's version of success. So Lauren, what is your version of success?
My version, and right now, my word of the year is spacious. So, my version of success is very spacious. It gives me time to, cook a lovely meal that takes me 2 hours to make at night if I want to, and to be with my dogs and my husband. It gives me time for my creative career and my acting. It gives me time to have wonderful, deep conversations with my clients. It's a spacious, spacious success.
Oh, I love that. And that's one of my favorite words. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's just having just having time and space in your day and in
Yes.
your calendar and in your life and having not feeling so rushed. So I
And
am
in your bank account, let's be spacious
yes.
everywhere.
Yes, I like the sound of that. That's amazing. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. So, Lauren, where can people find you online?
Well, I practice what I preach. So go ahead and find me on Instagram. I'm at Lauren.litt, Lit. And if you do jump on there, I will say hello. And also go ahead and check out my quiz. It is
Yes, I was going to
the
say yes.
Social Happy Cocktail Quiz. I'm so excited about it. So, what this does is I am showing you how to remove your inhibitions online so you can connect with your ideal clients.
I love it. That sounds amazing. So can people
Thank you.
find the link in your bio on Instagram?
Absolutely.
I'll also put it in the link in the description, the direct
Thank
link in the description for the YouTube video and the podcast. So please go and find that and sign up to that and find out. Do it. I love a quiz. So I'll be
Yeah.
doing this. I love a good quiz.
I put a lot of effort into this, y'all. And I'm creating the like fictional cocktails. So
Oh,
if
amazing.
you want to know what your real drink is, you can hit me up. I'll send you the recipe.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, thank you so much. That's been really, really interesting. I think, like I say, so much of certainly what I've spoken about on the podcast lately has been the reverse of this. So it's really refreshing, certainly to have someone else's opinion who is much more up to speed with all of this stuff. And I think it is finding like a balance with it that works for everyone, isn't it? And, finding your
Mhm.
kind of space on social media, making it work for you, all of that kind of stuff. So I think we're very much aligned in that respect.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you so much for your expertise and your time and your advice. That's been wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, Laura, thank you so much for having me.